launched ballistic missile from its east coast. South Korea expresses deep concern over the provocation, which comes just days ahead of nuclear talks with the U.S.
South Korea braces for Typhoon Mitag, due to hit the southern coast within the next 24 hours, with winds close to 90 kilometers an hour, coupled with heavy rain, is expected to cause serious damage.
South Korea confirms 2 more cases of African swine fever, prompting officials to cull even more pigs and impose a movement ban to contain the disease.
And experts from around the world gather in Seoul for the Global Korea Forum to discuss international cooperation. They stress that countries must come together to overcome ongoing economic uncertainties. News Center begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Hwaseong.
And I'm Han-daeun. Thanks for joining us. We'll begin with the latest on Typhoon Mitag, which is now fast approaching Korea's southern regions, packing strong winds and heavy rain.
For details on its trajectory and its impact, we connect to our Michelle Park, who is standing by at the Weather Center for us. Michelle, what's the latest?
Well, the Typhoon Mitag has picked up some speed on its way towards the peninsula, but there isn't any changes in terms of trajectory. Now, typhoon alerts have been issued across Jeju and Jeollado provinces, and heavy rain alerts are in effect across southern regions, with some already having received heavy precipitation with some gusty winds. Now, weather alerts are expected to expand and strengthen throughout the night. Now, the typhoon will make landfall on the coast of Jeollanam province later tonight. Afterwards, it's expected to move through the southern provinces and enter the East Sea by tomorrow morning. Now, based on the latest observation, Typhoon Mitag will cause the most damage tonight and early Thursday morning. Now, that's all for now, and I'll be back here with more updates in the later newscast.
Thank you, Michelle. Korea's southern regions are already getting up to 80 millimeters of rain per hour with strong winds, forcing the cancellation of hundreds of flights and inundating dozens of houses. Let's get more details from our Hong-yu, who is at the Gimpo International Airport. You fill us in.
Hi, Daeun. I'm at the domestic terminal at Gimpo International Airport. And because of the typhoon, all flights flying to and from Jeju-do Island have been canceled. A typhoon warning has been issued in Jeju-do, where there is 80 millimeters of rain coming down per hour with thunder and lightning. As a result, 445 domestic flights and 64 international flights in and out of Jeju Airport are grounded. Rain has been falling in the southern regions, including Jeju, since early this morning. Experts are urging people to take precautions because the strong wind and heavy rain will be here until tomorrow. According to the Korean Meteorological Administration, Mitag is a mid-strength typhoon, and it'll get to Korean mainland earlier than expected, about 2 hours from now at around 9 p.m. By then, Mitag is projected to be roughly 40 kilometers off Mokpo in Jeollanam-do province, and it is forecast to reach the southwestern city of Daegu Thursday morning and continue towards South Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo. It'll have winds of up to 97 kilometers per hour by the time it gets here. Back to you, Daeun.
Our Hong-yu for us tonight at the Gimpo International Airport. Thank you. Authorities have their eyes fixed on the typhoon trajectory while taking necessary measures to mitigate possible damage. Our Kan Young-woo now reports on the advised precautions that will help you weather the storm.
The Korea Meteorological Administration says heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected across the nation. If you're in the storm's path, keep your smartphone close and follow the news on the television and radio to aid your preparations. It's also important to have a first aid kit handy in case of an emergency. Stay indoors if possible, but if you have to go out, keep away from construction sites and traffic lights.
When a typhoon hits, flooding is the most common hazard, so it's important to check the sewers and drainage to make sure they are working properly. But if your property becomes flooded, do not go inside. Even if the water is drained, you should get help from the authorities, as the presence of home appliances pose dangers of electric shock.
If you live in an area where there might be a landslide or a flood, you should refer to your community's local evacuation plan and learn how to get to the closest safe place. If you're driving, slow down and do not take roads next to streams or rivers as they can become quickly flooded by a storm surge. Anything that the wind might blow away should be fastened securely.
According to research, taping the window pane can do little to protect them in case of strong winds. So it's important to fasten the window by taping its frame. If you apply a safety film, it can also minimize the damage from shattered glass.
There's no way to stop the storm from coming, but we can reduce the damage by preparing for the worst and following the advice of the emergency authorities. Kanyu, Arirang News.
In other news, North Korea launched another missile this morning into the East Sea. This was the regime's 11th launch this year, and it's believed it was fired from a submarine. Kim Ji-yeon has more.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff has confirmed that North Korea fired a ballistic missile from waters near the eastern port city of Wonsan in North Korea's Gangwon-do province. The missile was fired in an easterly direction at 7:11 a.m. Wednesday. The maximum flight altitude was some 910 kilometers, and the flight distance was around 450 kilometers. The Joint Chiefs identified the launch as a Pukguksong-type missile. During an emergency meeting, the National Security Council voiced grave concerns, saying the North may be developing a submarine-based ballistic missile at a time Pyongyang and Washington are preparing for working-level talks. Submarine-based ballistic missiles are believed to be more threatening than missiles fired from land since a launch site is harder to detect in advance. It's believed the North is developing a Pukguksong-3 missile and submarines of more than 3,000 tons, and that the recent launch could have been planned in advance regardless of progress on denuclearization talks. The North had fired Pukguksong-1 missiles 3 times from submarines in 2016 and fired a Pukguksong-2 missile from land in 2017. Meanwhile, Tokyo has corrected its analysis on the missile launch, saying that in fact it was 1 missile and not the initial 2 it had announced. Tokyo says it's further investigating on whether the 1 missile had separated into 2. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Defense Minister Chung Kyung-do, meanwhile, has said that South Korea, under the military intel sharing pact with Japan, had asked Japan for the specifics of the missiles launched by North Korea this morning. His remarks came when asked about whether Korea and Japan shared information regarding today's missile launch during the Parliament's annual audit of government ministries. North Korea's latest test firing of missiles comes just a day after it announced it'll hold the highly anticipated working-level talks with the U.S. this weekend. Experts have cited various reasons for the launch, which include Pyongyang's attempt to gain leverage before talks resume. Our Lee Ji-won reports.
Just hours after announcing its plans to hold working-level talks with the U.S., North Korea fired yet another round of missiles on Wednesday. North Korea expert Park Won-gun, professor at Handong Global University, says the move could be part of Pyongyang's efforts to maximize pressure on the U.S. ahead of the talks.
I think the North is betting very big on the upcoming working-level talks. Firing what are seen as submarine-launched missiles is the strongest card the North has within the boundaries. It's just below intercontinental ballistic missile and nuclear tests, which President Trump set as red lines. Thus, the move is seen as a warning to the U.S. that it had better bring new calculations about what it seeks.
North Korea had numerous times urged the U.S. to bring new calculations into the nuclear negotiations, which many experts see as meaning step-by-step denuclearization with corresponding measures including sanctions relief and a security guarantee. The Washington Post also cited a nuclear expert to say the move is seen as an attempt to raise Pyongyang's bargaining power. But it added that it is also a protest against South Korea's first ever public showcase of its F-35A stealth fighter jets at its 71st Armed Forces Day just the day before. The North is believed to see the fighter jet as one of Seoul's most threatening weapons for its accuracy and stealth technology. Though Professor Park thinks the North state-run media will blame the fighter jets for its test firing, he says the message is ultimately for the U.S.
The North is likely to slam South Korea and the F-35A fighter jet to justify its missile launch. But if it really wanted to target the South, it would have fired other short-range missiles instead. This comes as the North cannot explicitly target its words at the U.S., as it would lead to more opposition against the regime within Washington and lessen Trump's ability to reach a deal.
Now, while not much is known about the upcoming working-level talks, Seoul's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa expects a security guarantee to be discussed later this week. Speaking at the Parliament audit on Wednesday, she said the gist of the talks would be how flexible the two sides are in narrowing their differences. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Responding to North Korea's missile launch, U.S. State Department spokesperson called on the regime to refrain from provocations. According to Reuters, she went on to say the North should abide by its obligations imposed by UN Security Council resolutions and remain engaged in substantive and sustained negotiations to do its part to ensure peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. While there were concerns that North Korea's launch of a possible SLBM could prompt U.S. President Trump to change his mind over the upcoming bilateral talks, the department's response shows that Pyongyang and Washington are still both headed towards the negotiation table. Shortly after North Korea's announcement on the resumption of Pyongyang-Washington talks on Tuesday, the U.S. State Department has confirmed that the two sides will meet within the next week. Our Lee Seung-jae has more on that.
Citing its first Vice Foreign Minister, Choi Sun-hee, North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Tuesday that Washington and Pyongyang have agreed to hold preliminary contact on Friday before holding working-level negotiations on Saturday. Che did not mention where the talks will be held, but said the North is ready to talk and expects some positive developments. U.S. State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus later confirmed North Korea's statement, saying officials from the two sides plan to meet within the next week. She also refrained from elaborating about the specifics, such as the location for the talks. Also reacting, South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade said it welcomed the scheduled resumption of talks. In a text message to reporters on Tuesday, Cheongwade spokesperson Ko Min-jung said Seoul hopes the talks will lead to both sides making practical progress at upcoming working-level negotiations for the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and the establishment of lasting peace. The upcoming talks will be the first nuclear talks between Pyongyang and Washington since the second North Korea-U.S. summit ended early in Hanoi in February due to differences over the North's denuclearization measures and sanctions relief from the U.S. Hopes for a resumption of their talks started to emerge after President Trump fired his hawkish U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton last month, widely seen as a conciliatory gesture by Trump. However, watchers say it remains to be seen whether the two sides can make substantive progress this time, given they still seem far apart over the scope of the North's denuclearization, its disarmament method, and what compensation it could receive from the U.S. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Two more cases of African swine fever have been confirmed in South Korea in the past 24 hours, bringing the total to 11. Humans are safe, but the virus is deadly to pigs. And with Typhoon Mitag approaching, the government has ordered extra steps to stop it from spreading. Our Choi Jung-yoon has the details.
Two new cases of African swine fever were confirmed Wednesday by South Korea's Agriculture Ministry. Pigs at a farm in Paju, close to the inner Korean border, tested positive early Wednesday, and a few hours later, another case was confirmed in the same area, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 11. Paju is where the first case was confirmed roughly 2 weeks ago. In response, the government has issued a 48-hour ban through Friday morning on transporting pigs in Gyeonggi-do Province, Incheon, and Gangwon-do Province. Officials hope that'll prevent the virus from spreading while they try and find out how it got into the country. Some think it might have crossed the DMZ. South Korea has culled more than 90,000 pigs so far. But with the latest case, that number will increase to more than 110,000, or nearly 1% of all the pigs in the country. With Typhoon Mitag on its way, the government has instructed farmers to make sure their pig pens are ready for the storm so the animals don't get out. It's also going to step up its quarantine measures after the storm passes, because the rain will probably wash away the disinfectants already applied and the lime they've used to dispose of dead pigs. 최정윤, Arirang News.
The ongoing boycott of Japan has led to a huge fall in the number of tours to the country. According to South Korean travel agency Modu Tour, demand for tours to Japan in September dropped by more than 80% on year. Instead, people chose to go to Southeast Asian countries such as Malaysia, which saw an on-year increase of 50%. Meanwhile, the number of Koreans using mobile roaming services in Japan also dropped, with KT Corporation reporting a 45% on-year decrease last month during Korea's Chuseok Thanksgiving holiday. The value of online shopping transactions in South Korea rose to a new high in August. According to Statistics Korea, total purchases on computers and smartphones surpassed $9.3 billion. The biggest increase was in food delivery, up almost 90% on year to about $800 million. So-called subscription economy is gaining popularity across various products and retail services in South Korea. It refers to a business model in which companies provide regular products and services to consumers that subscribe and make recurring payments, such as newspaper subscriptions or video streaming services, such as Netflix. Hwaseong has the details.
31-year-old Woo Chang-jun gets sterilized fresh blankets delivered to his house every month at a time that suits him. It includes a mattress cover, blanket, and 2 pillow covers, all for roughly $25 a month.
It takes on average 3 to 4 hours to clean and dry the blankets in laundromats, but I can get clean blankets delivered with a click of an app. It's convenient and saves me time.
The subscription economy is not a new concept. It's an extension of monthly newspaper subscriptions, but the range of products and retail services online has been growing rapidly, from Netflix streaming services and e-books to cars. Hyundai Motor Company has started one in which customers can get 3 kinds of different cars, including sedans and SUVs, for $600 a month. Nike also launched subscription services for kids aged 2 to 10 that includes 4 pairs of shoes a year.
Sock subscription boxes are also on offer, where customers can get 3 pairs of socks per month.
Most of our customers are in their 30s and 40s. They can get it delivered easily and regularly. It is also about 30% cheaper than buying 1 pair at a time.
The global market for the subscription economy is expected to grow from $420 billion in 2015 to $530 billion by 2020.
There are many online mobile platforms. The increase in the number of one-person households has led to growing demand for regular, convenient delivery services. Young people these days also emphasize experience and prefer to try out more different products before buying.
There are still legal issues that companies need to sort out, like who is responsible for insurance payments when a product is damaged. But regardless, for companies, the subscription economy helps them find a niche market as consumer behavior shifts from offline to online, and also estimate product demand and plan their supply accordingly. And that means subscription economy services are set to continue evolving and growing. Hwaseong, Arirang News.
Experts from around the world are gathered in Seoul to discuss how they can promote international cooperation amid growing global uncertainties. The key message being delivered is that nations must come together to achieve economic co-prosperity. Yoon Jung-min reports.
People, prosperity, and peace are among the key factors for South Korea's economic future. That was the message delivered at a seminar to support the Global Korea Forum, which was launched to promote global cooperation. Experts on finance and international cooperation from the government and the private sector gathered in Seoul on Wednesday to discuss the issue.
Based on inclusiveness, openness, and pacifism, South Korea should seek sustainable development. Korea should be a pioneer in building an inclusive, peaceful world based on these universal concepts.
Under the theme of global inclusiveness, the panel discussed sharing Korea's economic development with other countries through official development assistance. They stressed the importance of forming human networks with the rest of the international community.
What we try to do is to share information and conduct discussions and seminars and develop new ideas, and of course develop human networks among the participating organizations.
The panel also said Korea should foster cooperation with countries to Korea's north and south amid growing global uncertainties. They said countries like Russia and China possess great potential with natural resources and infrastructure, while many Southeast Asian countries have enormous human resources. As a member of the international community, South Korea aims to keep increasing its role on the global stage by promoting economic cooperation with other countries. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The suspect of a notorious serial murder case in Hwaseong that had been unsolved for decades has confessed to the killings. He also confessed to 5 more murders that he wasn't being investigated for. Our Hwaseong has the details.
The Gyeonggi Nambu Provincial Police Agency said Wednesday that the suspect in a string of murders in Hwaseong City in the 1980s has confessed to the killings that shook the nation at the time. Police had been investigating the prime suspect after the National Forensic Service found that DNA collected from the underwear of one of the victims matched the suspect's DNA. The male suspect in his 50s is currently in prison for murdering his sister-in-law. He initially denied being the Hwaseong City murderer, but finally confessed in the face of mounting evidence, including new DNA matches and witness accounts. He also says he committed another 5 murders, and police are looking to verify his claims. But even if the suspect was the murderer in the infamous Hwaseong case, he will not be punished for those crimes as the statute of limitations expired in April 2006. The serial killings received renewed national attention when the case was made into 2003 movie Memories of Murder. Over 20,000 people were investigated for those murders, a figure that hasn't been broken since. Hwaseong, Arirang News.
Adults over 65 years old in the developed world outnumbered children under 5 for the first time ever as of last year. An aging society has become Korea's chronic problem. Marking the International Day of Older Persons today, our Lee Kyung-eun takes a look at the country's senior healthcare system.
With aging populations booming worldwide, so is the demand for doctors specialized in treating elderly people, otherwise known as geriatricians. As the number of geriatricians in the country is likely to determine its future public health, many OECD countries have formally recognized the crucial role geriatricians play. For instance, the UK and the majority of EU nations accredit geriatrics as a professional medical field that requires up to 8 years of training. However, in the US, geriatrics is classified as a subspecialty. It's part of the primary care specialty group, with physicians from internal medicine or family medicine taking 1 or 2 years of fellowship to be certified as geriatricians. A number of Asian countries, like Singapore, Taiwan, and Japan, have similar systems to certified added geriatric qualifications. But in South Korea, one of the world's fastest Asian countries, geriatrics is not formally recognized by the government. Instead, the role is filled by doctors from other departments like internal medicine. However, many experts say geriatricians play a unique role in the medical world. At the fundamental level, they differ from other doctors in that they treat the normal symptoms of aging as a type of disease. Their ultimate goal is not treating organs to return them to their original state, but instead preserving as many functions as possible to promote healthy aging. They also treat chronic diseases in a way that's different from how younger patients are treated.
Treating older patients requires unique forms of treatment and a special approach, as they're physically weaker and more fragile than younger people. And as such, they require more advanced treatments.
With growing demand for geriatricians in South Korea, medical societies have been trying for years to make coordinated efforts to officially implement geriatrics in the country's healthcare system, but there are multiple barriers.
The main problem is the grappling interests among different medical societies, which have their own separate agendas. Some groups even flatly oppose it as they view geriatrics as a threat to their own medical departments. Also, insufficient education and low salaries are pushing medical students away from the field.
With these limitations, the future of geriatrics in South Korea looks uncertain for the time being. But experts say the raising awareness of the issue will help the country shift toward carefully considering the needs of the nation's senior citizens. 이경은, Arirang News.
Over the past couple of decades, K-pop has cemented itself as a widely popular and instantly recognizable music genre around the world. This week, there's a conference in Seoul on K-pop and its future, where panels will discuss issues surrounding K-pop and the concerns on the sidelines by popular artists. Our Lee Min-sun has this report.
The 2019 Seoul International Music Fair, South Korea's biggest K-pop fair known as NEWSCENTER, is back for an 8th year at the COEX Convention and Exhibition Center in southern Seoul. Against a backdrop of music showcases and a business marketplace, experts, music festival directors, and industry people are gathered under one roof to discuss the convergence of music, culture, and technology. One of the top agendas is K-pop as a global music trend and the future of K-pop based on a statistical analysis of the global fan base.
Lots of fans don't just like one K-pop group, but listen to a bunch of different artists outside the ones they say are their favorite. YouTube videos featuring other musicians mentioned by K-pop idol groups are being flooded with comments. So it shows K-pop is expanding to cover a broader range of Korean music. K-pop is being redefined.
In the past, the typical path for a K-pop group to achieve international fame was to become popular in South Korea first and then enter the global market based on their solid fan base at home. But many of the so-called third-generation K-pop groups are often more popular overseas than they are in South Korea. Based on an analysis of YouTube viewership, the overwhelming majority of K-pop content is consumed overseas. In fact, consumption in South Korea accounts for a mere 10% of the global total.
For third-generation idol groups, becoming successful in South Korea is not as important as before, and they are primarily targeting overseas markets. It's becoming more important to come up with a new strategy and planning that fits the new trend.
Experts also suggest a closer analysis of the K-pop fan base to better understand the current trends, as fans are no longer just passive consumers. They are increasingly becoming active producers of K-pop, reproducing content and marketing their favorite stars on their social media accounts. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi says Korea is unlikely to reach the government's economic growth target for this year. Speaking before a parliamentary audit today, Hong said the ongoing US-China trade dispute and slowing global economy are making it difficult to achieve the government's growth target of between 2.4% and 2.5%. His comments came after Standard & Poor's revised down its growth estimate for Korea to 1.8%. The Macroeconomic Research Office, AMRO, has also painted a gloomy picture, forecasting Korea's economy to grow this year by 2.1%. Hyundai Motor saw its sales in the US jump in the third quarter. The South Korean automaker says it sold nearly 178,000 units, up 6.7% from the same period last year. But for the month of September, sales were down almost 9% on year, putting an end to 13 straight months of rising sales. Still, Hyundai was selling more SUVs and eco-friendly models. It sold 27,000 SUVs in the US in September, a record high for the month. Sales of the eco-friendly Ioniq model were also strong, up almost 75% on year. America's United Parcel Service will officially launch the country's first drone delivery airline. The achievement comes after the Federal Aviation Administration granted the company a certification that'll allow it to fly drones with loads exceeding 25 kilograms even at night. UPS plans to start delivering packages to hospitals, then eventually expand to other industries, so it will take some time until regular customers can enjoy residential drone deliveries. South Korean singer Chen from boy band EXO has topped the iTunes album charts in 36 countries around the world with his latest solo album. He released his second mini-album, Dear My Dear, on Tuesday afternoon. The 6-track album with the retro pop song Shall We as a lead track is also ranked top of various domestic album and local music streaming charts. It follows his first mini-album named April and a Flower, which also topped the iTunes album charts in 33 countries when it was released in April.
The northern parts of the country will be the least affected by the storm, receiving about 80 millimeters of rain until tomorrow. However, the nation's southern regions will see up to 300 millimeters, while the east coast of Gangwon province will receive up to 500 millimeters of heavy rain as the typhoon exits to the northeast. Now, as for the temperature readings for tomorrow, most parts of the country will be waking up into the low 20s. Now, Seoul will start the day at 20 degrees Celsius, Daegu at 21, and Busan and Jeju begins the day at 22 and 23 degrees respectively. Daily highs are expected to stay cool, but will still linger above the seasonal average. Now, Seoul will be topping out to 25 degrees, while Daegu and Busan are hotter at 28, Gyeongju to 29 degrees. Now we'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will wrap it up for today's Arirang News Center. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Keep it tuned to Arirang for news in depth, coming up in just a few minutes.